Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Museum of the African Diaspora. My name's Elizabeth Gessel, and I'm the Curator of Public Engagement here at the museum. And I'm very pleased to have you all here with us tonight for our Love and Basketball exhibition programming. I want to give a special thanks to Melinda M. Hightower, whose sponsorship of the Love and Basketball exhibition and programming makes tonight's event possible and this beautiful exhibition that you see around you. So thank you, Melinda. I also want to shout out our other Black History Month sponsors. We have Umpqua Bank, the Yerba Buena Partnership, the San Francisco Office of Economic and Workforce Development, and the Golden State Warriors. So everyone's getting in on it. They know what amazing things are happening at MoAD. Tonight we are thrilled to have the artists Anne Soul Sister Johnson in conversation with MoAD's Chief of Curatorial, Key Jo Lee. I'll tell you a little bit about both of them and turn it over to them. So born in London, England, and raised in Cheyenne, Wyoming, Anne Johnson is a graduate of Prairie View A&M University in Texas, where she now teaches, and received a BS in Home Economics. She's also received an MA in Humanities from the University of Houston Clear Lake, as well as an MFA from the Academy of Art University here in San Francisco, with a concentration in printmaking. Primarily an interdisciplinary artist, Johnson's passion for exploring issues, particularly in the Black community, has led her to create series of works that are evocative and engaging, such as the Hoop Dreamin' Collection, a series of decorative basketball goals that explore the social issue of a hoop dream. In 2023, Johnson was listed as one of the most transformative artists of the year by Black Art in America. Johnson earned the name Soul Sister because she paints portraits with her feet. Anne Soul Sister Johnson aspires to leave a legacy of challenging and thought-provoking work that will entice the viewer and inspire younger artists. She's represented by Hooks Epstein Gallery in Houston, Texas, and Spillman Blackwell Fine Art in New Orleans, Louisiana. And we also have with us this evening Key Jo Lee. She's Chief of Curatorial Affairs and Public Programs here at MoAD. In this role, Lee oversees the strategic direction for the museum's exhibitions and programs, leads globally on identifying and promoting emerging artists from the African diaspora, and works to expand MoAD's reach and influence locally, nationally, and internationally. She's responsible for the overall management and execution of the museum's curatorial vision, including its exhibitions, publications, and public and educational programs, and plays an important role in the organization's outreach, communications, and digital strategy. Lee has a master's degree from and is a PhD candidate in the history of art and African American studies at Yale University. And even before getting her PhD, she has her first book. It's called Perceptual Drift, Black Art and an Ethics of Looking, published by Yale University Press and the Cleveland Museum of Art in January 2023. So please join me in giving a warm welcome to Anne Johnson and Key Jo Lee.
Thank you so much for being in conversation with me tonight.
Absolutely.
Anyone who's ever seen me moderate or give a talk, I always like to start actually with the audience. And so I'm going to ask the audience a question to give me one word that describes what you're seeing, what you're experiencing, or what you're feeling in this room. Just one. Color, amazing. Joy, beautiful. Sparkle, yeah, a little razzle dazzle. Brilliance. Resilience. Maybe one more. Tenacity.
Okay.
Amazing. And I think all of those words actually filter into the work that you do. You have to be tenacious to do this kind of beadwork.
Or crazy.
Right? And so I think that I'd like to begin where we are. Okay. So this is a series that you have been working on for quite a while, and then created a new work for this exhibition. But my question is, where does this series come from? How did it start? What inspired it?
Okay. So the initial start of this series came from seeing the work of Michael Ray Charles. Right. And I don't know how many of y'all are familiar with Michael Ray's work. really derogatory images that people don't like. But I know Michael, and I've always been able to see past that to see what he was saying. But he had this piece called "The NBA is Tantastic," like buckwheat.
Yes.
And this was maybe 97 or 98. And I just couldn't stop staring at it because I really understood where he was coming from, because in those days, it was about getting a college scholarship. Now you have Neil, so these kids are millionaires before they get out of high school. But back then, you had to really, really work. And I saw that, and I thought about how many athletes, were not getting proper education, but they were being used. And so, I'm dating myself, I guess. I was in round 8 of Project Row Houses. If you're familiar with Project Row Houses, it's a social series of row houses in Houston, Texas that are converted to art spaces. And my first inclination of this series, I had a row house. I don't have any pictures, but I can tell you exactly what I had on. I was clean. But I created a basketball court inside of this shotgun house.
Yes.
And it was inspired by Michael Ray Charles and Renee Cox.
Ah, amazing.
It shall be named. I was obsessed with that piece, It Shall Be Named.
Yes.
And then from there, I just started playing around. Dr. Wardlaw, Alvia Wardlaw, was always a mentor. And Dr. Talley, Reverend Talley, who was my department head, and now we're co-workers, he started playing with beads. And so I'm going to try to do whatever he does.
Yes.
Just 'cause. And then I started, let me bead a basketball goal. And that's where the Egyptian collar came from. That was the first one. And then I would find these odd shapes.
Yes.
Because construction in Houston is all the time. So if they're putting a roof up, I would get a shape like that. And I would just pick them up. And people always throw basketball goals and hoops away.
Yes.
And so that's how it started. It started with that court and then these beaded works.
But I think I want to press a little bit
The social part of it.
but also
Okay.
why basketball?
Oh,
why are
okay.
you? Yes, why basketball as your subject matter, and to endow it with so much care, so much opulence.
Oh, okay. I love basketball. I do. My mother's watching basketball right now. We Golden State's playing Houston. She's, but I've always loved basketball. When I had good knees, I played basketball. But it's kind of an obsession. I just love it, and I could see that hoop dream, that social dynamic between. I taught summer camp for years in the hood in Houston, and these were the Michael Jordan days.
Yes.
And the little boys, I will never forget this. I will never forget this. The day after Michael Jordan got his 6th ring, basketball people know, and he shot over Byron Russell, and he just stood there. That next day, every little boy was like, "No, man, he did it like this. He did it like this." And I was like, wow, they are just so obsessed with it. And then so many of them thought, that's my only way to get out of here.
Yes.
And so I try to unify that message in the work.
Right. So thinking about how basketball is seen as a way out or a way up, and where that promise can reside or not, because there are limitations, right, on the capacity even for the game. There are a limited number of positions. There's a limited number of years that you can actually play. And then also the ways in which players, even as they're making tons of money, can get taken advantage of, thinking that is an endless font, right? And so I love this juxtaposition between the bling and this idea of having a rim
Yes.
on one's potential. So could you talk a little bit more about, there is a video that is typically playing that My Freedom's Got a Rim on it. Can you talk a little bit about that? What do you mean?
Well, that came from a book called Soul of the Game. I couldn't think of it earlier today. In the early 2000s, when Chris Webber was here, there was this obsession with street ball, and you would see all these commercials, and all these books were coming out, and you knew all the boys at Rucker Park, all of that. And so, I would see that, and I was like, wow, that's kind of cool. And they all had the same obsession to make it to the league, and part of that is getting the bling, right?
Yes.
So my very first one was a dream catcher. It mimicked a dream catcher. And then I was like, but they really want the bling.
Yes.
And so when I start messing with the bling catcher aspect of it, then it gets deep. You know, then it gets heavy.
Yes.
Because you have some of them say things like practice and, you know, I found some good bling, dollar store bling. But there was a poem in that book called My Freedom Got a Rim on It, and that always stayed with me.
Yes.
Because it's so relatable to thinking, that's it, it's got to be this, so my freedom, if I want to be free, you know, my freedom has the rim on it. It's a limitation.
Yes. Yes.
But it is their goal.
Absolutely. How freedom is so linked to
Yeah.
money and
Yeah.
to, yes. Can we talk a little bit about the bling catchers?
Okay.
Is there maybe one you want to talk about specifically?
Yeah, of course. First of all, this one, St. Jordan, she was asking me, where'd you get those? Those are mine. Those are, I'm not a Jordanologist. I know somebody in here is probably a Jordanologist. Those are Air Jordan 3. And I put them on layaway at the Children's Foot Locker in Dallas, Texas. They were $53. I thought I was going to die. Oh, Lord, $53. But they matched my little Fendi glasses. I went to fashion school, so we always had stuff. And so, you know, but the idea of what people were doing, even now, one of my students told me, you know, they were shooting at the Jordan release. I'm like, y'all still doing that?
Right.
Shooting at sneaker releases?
Yeah.
And so when you have sneakers hanging, you know, in the hood, that's a symbol of somebody was killed there or shot there.
Yes.
And so this dying devotion to these Jordan folks are serious.
Yes.
about their shoes.
Yes.
But the one, I think my favorite that I did, because I love you, because I did 5 new bling catches
Yes.
just
Oh
for
my
you.
goodness. That's my special gift,
That's-
convincing artists to do stuff quick, fast.
It was a crazy week. I was getting my floors done. I was doing it in my bedroom. But the Cheryl Swoops piece,
Yes.
it's the last bling catcher right there. And it says, you better want to be a Cheryl on it. This right next to the circle piece. The one with the hair. Oh, that one. Yeah, that one with the hair on it. That's specifically, I wanted to make sure the women were represented in this show. And Cheryl Swoops is cold. You know, in her day, she was the one. And so, and Caitlin Clark can ball. Okay, she can play. Tired of hearing her, but she can play. So Cheryl had said something about her, so they got all in their emotions in Iowa, and they started putting out these T-shirts that say, don't be a Cheryl. I thought that was so stupid. 3 gold medals, 4 WNBA championships, 3 MVPs, 3 Defensive Players of the Year, and Cheryl Swoops was the original diva. These girls are cute now, but when I played basketball, you knew the day that the girls were playing because they walked around like this and these prairie dresses and stuff because they had to wear a dress. But now these girls have dripping swag, and I wanted to represent that. The braids, because as a female athlete, you rely on getting your hair braided, black girls. And then there's a fertility doll, kind of showing that she was one of the origins, you know, that first group. And then there's a lot of female, and there's fingernails on there. Cheryl Swoops played with fingernails. I mean, she was the original diva, and bamboo earrings, you know, so it says a lot on the back. There's an MVP trophy. So I probably put the most thought into that one because I really wanted to make sure she was represented there. This one, that's actually me.
Yes.
But it can be, as one of my students told me, maybe it's this female player's hoop dream. You know, don't forget about us. You know, or it's a mother's dream, birth of a star child.
Yes,
That
yes.
the parent's sometimes dream is stronger for that child than that child's dream is to be an athlete.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that what you really brought to the fore is how each of your works, they impact you immediately because they are so, they glisten,
Right.
but they bear ever more fruit the more you look. So as you look at the bling catchers, it's what's happening also behind the image at the front, right? There's bits of cotton, there's feathers, there are other bits of gold that each bring you into. They make me feel like they are almost like reliquaries.
Yeah.
Right, these little sacred spots, but that you have to look in order
They
to
do tell
find.
stories, big stories. And it's kind of a nod to, I love the Bay. Something about Oakland is so southern. I think it's that Texas, Louisiana thing in Oakland. It's like, hey, how you doing? I'm a forever auntie my niece over there. She took me to the barbershop once. This is a side note. And everybody walked by. I was like, how you doing? Hey, how you doing? She was like, what is wrong with you? She was just cracking up. But anyway, I wanted to represent that I go to Kala every year. Oakland is my happy place in the summer. And so I wanted to kind of give a little shout out. And then my professor right here from the Academy of Art, Sarah, she was gracious enough to let me fly when I was in grad school. And that's when I started printing on feathers.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And you'll see, so behind us we have sort of a carousel of images of some of Anne's other backboards, but also there's a bling catcher in which you can see this, delicate portrait printed on feathers, right? So that also speaks to me of the ephemerality of that basketball career, but the ways that they can also live on, right? That image still beckons. We still want to know who that person is.
Right.
I wondered if you wanted to say, you've mentioned it a little bit, but how has the Bay in particular impacted you and your work?
Well, whenever you have a residency as an artist, and my mother always, what are you doing? I said, I'm just creating. I get to wake up and create. So it gives me time to do that. And then I get a chance, Sarah will come by the studio, so I still get that insight. And my beloved Nick is my special Nick. They tell me you don't treat everybody the same, but I'm the special one. They be hating me. But he's so patient, and I do the intaglio process. I don't do this anymore. The work I do is mostly small. It's much smaller and much more intimate. Still tells stories.
Yes.
I will print on anything except paper.
Yeah.
And thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I almost didn't graduate. But printing on cotton's gonna tell its own black story.
Absolutely. And
I love putting the cotton. Okay, I'm gonna say it. I have a white lady that picks cotton for me, and I just thoroughly enjoy saying that.
Listen.
I just thoroughly enjoy saying. She gets so excited. I got some cotton for you today. And so I use it's plantation cotton.
Yes.
And then the raw cotton I can print on, and it's things I had to learn about those techniques, and I'm able to push those boundaries here because I'm at peace of mind. I have a nice, clean, safe place to stay, and I have great technical equipment. So, and then the people here are just so cool. We came here for Juneteenth, y'all were closed. Black folks was not open in Oakland on Juneteenth. We couldn't find a restaurant.
We were at home.
Yeah, that's right, at the barbecue.
But that also connects deeply to, so I remember when you brought Jess in and they were saying how they're mostly used to your printmaking.
Yeah, my small stuff.
And so I wanted to talk about this experimental printmaking.
Okay.
Is there any connection to what's happening here with your printmaking practice? And yes, we'll start there. And then
I think there's always going to be a connection, because you always grow as an artist and you always pull from something. I mean, the things I do now, they're not as blingy, but they are as conversational.
Yes.
And so that piece that's flat, you look just like my sister Lovey right there. That flat piece, when you get a chance to walk and look down on it, specifically comes from a series of works that I had done for Freedmanstown in Houston, Texas. So Freedmanstown in the 4th Ward is, speaking of Juneteenth, when the word a year later got to Texas, most of those emancipated black folks just migrated down to Houston. Galveston's 40 miles out of Houston, into an area called Freedmanstown, which was most of downtown and midtown. And Freedmanstown had all these brick paved streets. And gentrification, there's only like 3 or 4 streets left. The neighborhood is it's like that, right? And so our museum in Houston, the Contemporary Arts Museum, now has a relationship with Freedmanstown. So I was one of their first artist fellows, and Theaster Gates is involved. And I sent a proposal. I said, I'm thinking about doing images on bricks. I'd never done it before in my life because I didn't think I was going to get it. And I was like, okay, I'm a print on bricks. Yeah. I'd never done it before. And I told Theaster, I'm going to print on bricks, Never done it before, so I had to figure the process out. So I make the bricks. And so when you see my concrete work, it always references Freedmanstown. And those were children from that neighborhood. And then that one piece is Coach Pruitt in Freedmanstown. And he's a guy who coaches the Little League team. You know, they don't have uniforms and stuff like that. And so there's remnants of me pushing the boundaries of printmaking, still loving the community and bringing it all together.
Absolutely. I've been really impressed by the sheer array of media. So from making portraits with your feet to this extensive beading practice to this printmaking practice. But can we talk a little bit more about process, right? So what is your process in creating? First, we'll start with the backboards and then maybe talk about the bling catchers.
With the backboards, again, I was influenced by Reverend Talley. He was the department head. And the Egyptian collar, the first one, I had found this backboard on the side of the road. And each row was when Ken Burns Jazz was on PBS. So I would watch it each night, and I would do one row. So each row is within one episode. And then some of the other ones, like Birth of a Star Child, I was really studying quilts.
Okay.
John Biggers, his backgrounds.
Yes, and you'll see some of the other quilted pieces come around behind.
Yeah, and then this, you know, the whole Egyptian thing. I mean, King Tut was the king of bling.
Yeah.
And so that's one of his amulets. And then it has CDs in it. So, not to name drop, but I was so fortunate this summer to spend a whole week with Mickaleen Thomas at Anderson. She's just as cool as she looks.
Yes.
Yeah, she's so cool. And she was just so open and accessible. And I was kind of under the gun to kind of get some of these pieces here, and I just kept hearing her voice. I used what's accessible to me. I used what's accessible to me. So those CDs, remember you could go into Target and they would have all those CDs by the door. You know, one of the, you know, remember those?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, they would have all that stuff and marbles and just crafty things.
And then what is the significance of the Mardi Gras beads?
Accessibility.
Accessibility, yeah.
Or my mother and I used to go to Hobby Lobby or Target or Walmart the day after Christmas when everything was half off, and just try to get as many beads as we could. That's what we did. That was our thing. And then so there's kind of a limit to the colors because of that, you know, especially with the I hadn't beaded a hoop in years.
Right.
But that circle one, you know, I was kind of limited to what I could find, and what I could find was a bag of Mardi Gras beads.
Right, and then, but that one was also specifically inspired by baskets.
Yes.
Right, so there's always this sort of other
the
reference
Rwanda
that
baskets that a lot of people have on their walls now, and I have a little design on my wall, so that was the inspiration for pattern.
Yeah, it's just bringing the everyday into this new language. And then with the bling catchers, so I'm wondering about how you make your decisions as to, so with Birth of a Star Child, there is a bling catcher affixed to the front. How are you making these sort of decisions around how you're going to configure, whether you're going to use sneakers? Yes.
I thought for Birth of a Star Child, what she was cradling, it's almost as if she's pregnant.
Yes.
And I thought I should put a bling catcher there and not show a baby, but show a crown, right? And then the little crosses and the little things I could find, some are Christmas ornaments, but little things that I could find for that. This is the only one that's orange.
Yes.
I thought I would just let one be orange, but the others are gold leaf. I start by gold leafing them. And the last thing I do is add the bling. Like this one has an Afro pick. Some have little sneakers on the back.
Yes.
Some just drip sneakers. And then, of course, they all have bling. Some bling is older, not as shiny and pretty as some of the other ones. So I just kind of, literally, I had all these on my couch. And then I had all this drip. And I was just, you should go here, and you should go there, and you should go there. Yeah. Like, you know, some of those have basketballs. Some have crosses.
Yes.
You know, so that's kind of how that worked.
Thank you. That's fantastic. And so I'm thinking about this video, and I wish we had put it up. It's young men who are repeating over and over again, "My freedom's got a rim on it. My Freedom's Got a Rim on It. Can you tell us how that came together, how it came
I
about,
sure
and its
can.
significance?
Yeah, they were flunking. They weren't coming to class.
The two young men who
The
appeared.
two young men in that video, they were really saying, my freedom got this rim on it for real, because, they hadn't been coming to class. Engineering majors don't understand easy. They make easy complicated, so they don't come to class. And Richard Atiba, the one, and he's images in one of these also. It was like, what can I do I got to graduate. I'm like, take off your shirt. Go oil up, sit right here. We're going to take, and he flowed with it. It was great. He kept saying, my freedom, what do I have to do? Is it practice? And I know what he was really thinking. What do I have to do to get this grade? But that's how it was, Richard and David. But it worked well. So when I had them do those videos, it was when I first started the bling catchers.
Yes.
And I had this little video card, which was attached to the hoop. And you can go and push the button, and then they would say it. So it was interactive. Yeah, and it was great, because the screen was maybe 2 inches by 2 inches.
Wow.
So it activated the piece.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Incredible. Who's your team?
My team? I love the Warriors. I'm a Warriors girl.
Yeah.
I'm going to need them to do something about these turnovers. I don't understand why GP2 doesn't play more. I'm into it. We're going to see what happens with Jimmy and Draymond. But no, I'm a Warrior. I love the Warriors. I like the Rockets to come up. They're on the come up. They're playing right now, the Rockets and the Warriors. The Rockets are on the come up, but I'm a Warriors fan. I was here in 2022 when they won.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. And so I'm wondering about the ways in which what you're moving into, what you're moving toward. So there are these prints that you're making. You're another solo exhibition is opening shortly.
Next week.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering, what's exciting you right now? What is inspiring you at the moment? And
Just pushing the boundaries of printmaking. It was hard for me to just say I'm a printmaker, because I just didn't fit in, right? They do editions, I don't. They print on paper, I won't. And so, the concrete thing is kind of taken over. I thought I was going to do it just for Freedman's Town.
Yes.
And it's the majority of my next show. And I'm doing layers. It's more personal, more images of me showing up in that. I'm still working with cotton and the 4-color. It's a whole process to get that to be full color. And so, yeah, Nick, I'm coming, baby. I'm not done with that yet. Not done with that yet. So I'm just always, want to challenge myself to. My work is always going to be. It's going to have aspects of identity, race, Black womanhood, the ironing boards. I do, a lot with the ironing boards, which I love to work with, and that's transfer printing. So, my work tells stories.
Yes.
Creates conversation. And pushes boundaries.
Beautiful.
And that's what I enjoy doing. And it doesn't bother me if you like it or not.
Yeah. Listen.
I always tell, look into the work and don't look at the work. You might have got off the elevator and said, that's pretty. But now that you're leaving, you might look at it just a little differently.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Thinking about that, so Egyptian collar is in the collection of Elliot Perry.
Right.
And you told me the story yesterday about how that came to be. I was wondering if you might share that with the audience.
Sure. I was, when you don't have money, you always volunteer to do stuff so you can get into the museum or whatever. And Dr. Alvia Wardlaw, who's like the GOAT of African American art history, she put this show together in Houston called Houston Collects African American Art. And she also curated the round that I was in at Project Row Houses. So she was like, when Alvia gives you the nod, you okay. She's like, you got that hoop I think I saw with the Egyptian? Yes, ma'am. I need that. I said, but the show says Houston Collect. I need that. So nobody owned it. They just lied on the label.
Curators, we are that way only.
Yeah, y'all are shady.
I need it.
I was scheming up some stuff. And so it was great. It was at the Museum of Fine Arts in Houston, and it was outside of the entrance to this particular exhibit. And so they had I think it was the National Council of Artists, had a conference at the MFA. and I was like a docent, to help, her out. And so I was so impressed with Elliot's collection because it was so contemporary. He had Renee Cox and, Lyle Ashton Harris, Radcliffe Bailey, rest in peace, that still hurts.
Robert Pruitt, you were saying?
Pruitt, yeah. And my whole Rue crew was in that show. We didn't know each other.
Oh, wow.
Except for Delita. And so I had good knees then. I was going down the stairs. Elliot was coming up the stairs, and I was like, oh, bruh, I loved your talk. And he said, do you have a piece in this show? I said, yeah, the basketball hoop. He was like, yo, sis, I love that piece. I was like, thank you. Made my day. And I never thought anything else about it. I mean, I was so broke that summer, I had to go on free day to see my own work in the museum. It was a rough summer. And so mutual friend, he called, he said, Elliot is still talking about that piece. Do you want to sell it? I'm like, yeah, cool. Yeah. And that's how he acquired it. And he was so gracious. He was quick. I was like, Elliot, I got this show at the MoAD. Can we use Egyptian collar? He was like, yeah. And it was packed up and on the way. And so that's the story of Egyptian collar.
And what that proved to me, as always, is that in the art world, social capital is real.
Yes,
I've been many places with like $70 in my bank account.
Yeah.
Eating somebody's caviar,
right,
because I'm an art historian.
Top shelf.
So exactly,
there, top shelf.
exactly. And then thinking about this idea of sort of social capital, this navigation, this movement. Can you talk to us a little bit about your experience in moving in and through the art world? Being a woman that's thinking about basketball so deeply and so specifically is not necessarily the expectation all the time as an artist, and thinking about how it has either helped you gain access or any places that it has maybe stymied your access.
Like I don't do this anymore.
Right, not these in particular, but yeah, I just mean in general.
My work is not as sports themed, but in terms of printmaking, it's intriguing because of the printmaking process.
Yes.
So it's opened a lot of doors. I've got, especially during COVID.
Yeah.
Because all those conferences were free, they were online. Every other week I was doing a talk with somebody. And then when we were free, I started getting all these residencies.
Yes.
And then opportunities. And so it's twofold. I mean, I don't sell as much as other people. Listen, I want to say I'm cool with that, but yeah, I'm cool with that.
Buy art.
But these times are getting weird. But those doors opened in terms of a broader audience. I had a show in North Dakota. I was invited to speak at the University of Illinois. Different places. And people knew me. It trips me out. Ann Johnson? Like, yeah, why?
I want to ask one more question before we open it up to the audience. Do you have a favorite work in this particular exhibition?
In this show?
Yes.
I might have to go with Cheryl Swoop's for that one. I mean, that's the bamboo earrings.
Absolutely.
It's excessively blingy.
Yes.
But I appreciate how pretty Egyptian collar is now because I haven't seen it in so long.
Yes.
Some of the other pieces are leaning in the garage,
Yes.
So to see them on the wall sparkly is really cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
I loved how you described the Cheryl piece as being very beauty supply.
Very beauty supply. Yes, very beauty supply.
Thank you so much. I want to open it up to the audience. I'm sure that there are questions. We're going to come around with a microphone. Oh, great. Please.
Okay, I'll share it with you.
Who's question?
Hi. I love the Cheryl Swoops piece, but I think I'm more of a Cynthia Cooper kind of guy because
all comments all day.
Because were you were you into the Comets as well as the Rockets and the Warriors that made you want to do the Cheryl Swoops piece? Because I love those Comets teams that won all those early titles, but then they had to fold. But I think if Cheryl was a diva, I think Cooper wasn't that far behind because she was about as tough as nails on the floor.
I mean, most people couldn't handle Coop. I was a season ticket holder. I found one of my ticket stubs. the other day, it was $10 for a WNBA game, lower level. I loved the comments. Tina Thompson, Cynthia Cooper, Kim Peratt, who passed away. But in terms of, Cheryl was quick. We used to call them Earth, Wind, and Fire. Coop was the earth, Cheryl was the wind, and Tina was the fire. And but Cheryl was diva in terms of fingernails being done, hair was always done. Coop went to work, but Cheryl was just diva, 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 diva. There were a lot of other issues going on the team, but thank you for asking about the comments.
Other questions?
Okay, so
Hometown.
that's what I want to ask about. Most people don't think there are any black folks in Wyoming. And
There's three in this room.
I grew up with you and your sister. Well,
Yes.
my siblings
Yeah.
were your age. And so I'm wondering the influence of being in a small white town like that. How did you develop your talent, your love of self, and the ability to express it?
By getting out.
Me too.
My father used to bring the Ebony Fashion Fair through. Every year was a big deal, and because it's a military town, you meet people from everywhere. But we would always have, I think the Ebony Fashion Fair only came to Cheyenne to eat, because they would come to our house afterwards, and the Masons and the Eastern Stars, and we'd have all these big potlucks, so we could meet all the models. But I knew I didn't want to stay. My mother made it a mission for my sister and I to go. She told my sister, you going to Florida A&M, you're going to a black college, you're not going to stay here. And I wanted to go to fashion school. And I went to fashion school. Went to fashion school in Arlington, Texas. And, when you go back home, it's different. You still have friends there, West Side, 28th Street, all of that. But I see why my mother pushed us out, I still love my friends that are there, but I'm so glad that I was able to grow. I'm a city girl now, but it's still home. It's still home. Cheyenne, it's a different kind of people there, It's a little weirder now, but back then it was different. Education was different, because going to school in the South, my first suite mate was from New Orleans. I didn't know what that girl was saying. She was like, "We gonna stow ya." I'm like, why does she keep answering herself? You going to make groceries? It's your birthday. How old you make? I'm like, what is wrong with, Because we spoke very clearly. Or if we had an accent, it was from where our parents are from. Like if your parents are from the East Coast, you picked up that accent. But we would speak clearly, so you had to be careful, like, not correcting people when you talk and things like that. But I'm glad for that Wyoming education, because it was a good education, yeah. But I think getting out was the best thing that ever happened, yeah. Okay. Okay. We have one in the back.
The top is on. I'm from New Orleans.
Okay. For true?
Don't start nothing. To what extent is your work with all the beadwork influenced by the Mardi Gras Indians, for instance?
Inadvertently, yes. And I always get students from New Orleans, because, they don't go to school with Mardi Gras. They just always, it's not a Texas holiday, they don't care. They're going. And they always bring me beads back. They would bring me beads back all the time. And in fact, one of my coworkers from New Orleans last week, and he was telling me, he said, every man in New Orleans knows how to sew, because we have to sew our uncles' costumes for Mardi Gras every year. He said, will we be up all night, So it's inadvertently influenced. And when I was in school, I did these paper dresses, and people would stop me all the time, and they say, that looks just like a Mardi Gras Indian's outfit. So it's in there. All right, I see.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So, I loved your comment. I love that you were asking her, like, why do you use these materials? Because it's a conversation that Ann and I have been having for years.
Yeah.
And I've never heard you say that idea of accessibility. And I'd love to hear you talk more about that, because for me, by the way, I was the one who said, yeah, it's okay if you don't do traditional printmaking. It's our
you.
long
Thank
conversation.
you.
I said, let Ann be Ann.
Thank you.
But your attraction to materials, I think, is really key.
Yeah.
You know, this idea that there were basketball hoops, the boards that you found, and they were there, and therefore they became what you worked with.
Yeah.
And then when you were printing, it was like, well, I have feathers, I have corn husks, I have cotton, it was not, and they were very deliberate. They're very important. They're very meaningful in your work. But this idea of the things that are at hand, I think, is really telling in a bigger way. And I don't know if you could want to expand on that.
Well, I do think I am Betty Saar's lost daughter. I truly believe that. And I met her, and I met Allison. I was like, girl, I think we sisters. And so I look at that as influence. And you introduced me to Radcliffe Bailey, right? Because I hadn't seen his work before. Rest in peace, that still hurts. Towards the end of my time at the Academy, I started doing these prayer fans. Remember the prayer fans? With the base of it would be an Afro pick, shadow boxes, adding nails and things that would tell a deeper story of my family. And I think it's just something that happened naturally. Yeah. And I see things, and when I see stuff, I think, what can I do with that? Not what is that? Yeah.
I think it also beautifully connects to this. It forces us to take the everyday so seriously, because you bring him to the fore, to the point of notice, but also thinking about this inheritance of, I don't know, making 15 cents look like $1. This way of encouraging or showing what is missing from, right, the historical archive, this embodied way, this drive that we have consistently had. One of the things that is often on my mind is that trauma is not our only generational inheritance. So too is joy, so too is this drive toward beauty and adornment. And you make that so present by using these ephemeral materials. And also it points to this ephemerality of this knowledge, right? The way that these things escape the history books. How do we make those present? And your entire visual language seems to speak to that. This is here, even if you aren't reading it in your books. And there's a familiarity to the way that you are presenting these works, but shifting our ideas, just like you were saying. When we leave, we'll look at every single thing we see a bit differently. And the next time you see a regulation hoop, you will see it a bit differently. How can you then see the geometries of the court as something beautiful? Yeah. So I want to thank you for that.
Appreciate it. I appreciate it.
Hello there.
Hey.
Linnell Bevels, Claude Bank. I missed the earlier introduction, but
Okay.
Super excited to be here. And I just wanted to say that today for me is kind of like a full circle. I actually attended an event in Oakland at the former Golden State Warriors, I guess, campus.
Yeah.
And it's where the new WNBA team
The Valkyries.
the
Yeah.
Valkyries. Yeah. And so I also had an opportunity to meet Charmin Smith. Is it Charmin Smith? She's the head coach for UC Berkeley's women's basketball team.
Oh, okay.
Which was so coming here, looking at all this loveliness, all this beautiful representation of hoops, and having spent half a day with all things women's basketball.
Yeah.
I just wonder, are we going to see your works in and around what they're doing? Because there's a lot of excitement around women's basketball. There's a lot of money now that is being directed in that arena. And so I just thought this was missing today where I was.
Holler at your friends.
Okay.
I did actually just randomly, there's this young lady, her name is Jordan, I think it's Ligon. She is so awesome. Loves women's basketball, even the Unrivaled. I'm crazy about the Unrivaled League. I love it. And she wrote me back. I was like, if you're in town for the All-Star game, you should drop by the MoAD and check out my show. And I did this piece just for Cheryl. She was like, okay, cool. If I'm there, I'm going to check it out. And I'm going to tell Cheryl. It's like, yeah, So, I just love for them to see it. And, I think it should be seen. I agree. And seen deeply. Yeah. Oh, Lord. That's my sister. That's my sister.
Don't fear.
I ain't scared of you.
Well, I just love hearing you talk about your process. I am the non-creative one in the family, so this is very exciting for me. I was struck by something that you said regarding the Egyptian collar, right? Because that was the first one.
Uh-huh.
I'm curious, as you are seeing it now, what are you seeing in it now that may not have been a part of your process when you created it before?
Girl, what were you thinking? That was a lot of detail. One thing, Carrie Ann, my other professor, the first thing she said about me was you're labor intensive. Yes. Remember that? It's the first thing she said, you're just labor intensive. And when I applied for the academy, they didn't know where to put me because I'm the first online MFA to graduate from that school. And they didn't know where to put me. So they had me in sculpture, and I'm like, I'm going to blow my house up. I can't do all that stuff. Because they had seen, these are the pictures that I've sent. And I can see it now because I keep staring at it, but the symmetry was so good. Each row. And then I remember, that was the episode about Billie Holiday, and that was the episode, because it was, Ken Burns, how deep Ken Burns can be. And it was every night, Ken Burns Jazz. It was a different 2-hour episode, and I just sat there. And because that first row, with the arrows, that's intense. And then the wing part, I cut those beads. So I cut each bead on that wing part. So so that one, and then the chain nets, those are very intentional. Which, speaking of intentional, that's the name of my show next week. But when the guys came by the house to pack up the work, and we're having this long conversation, and he was like, I just love your work. He said, because they packed each piece. He said, your work is so intentional. I was like, oh, okay. That's true. Yeah. So I'm just seeing the symmetry in it. And
Is the message the same?
Yeah. Messaging will be the same. Yeah, that was just all about bling. Yeah.
Hi. I guess I was curious, thinking about the era. You said these are works that you did some years back. How has the nature of, I think, the cultural hoop dream changed since you first
It's changed
did these
a lot.
until now?
Yeah, because you can get it
Thanks.
in high school now because of NIL, the name, image, and likeness. So you got these high school kids who are coming out as millionaires. So now that dream has shortened. They might not even be considering college or going to the pros because they're millionaires before they can even get. Some of them are juniors and seniors with national endorsements. So that makes the dream a little bit different. But then you think of the pressure that kid has because now you're the breadwinner and you're 14. So it's kind of like the tennis players, so that part of the dream has changed the most. Yeah.
Any other questions? Just wait a second, Paul.
I'm loud. I don't need a microphone. But I was just looking at some of the work that's up right now, and the printing on the cement and the bricks things that you've created here. What's the continuity from this work that leads into this work? What do you see from the work that you're creating that's connected to the work that we're seeing here now?
Yeah, those bricks won't leave me alone. I want to be done with them.
I love it. I want to know. I want the thread, and then
They
also
do.
if you could tell us a little bit more about where we're going to be able to see those,
Oh, sure.
and the thing that's coming up that you guys are referencing.
I don't know, something about these bricks won't leave me alone right now. They just won't leave me alone. The one that went up, that's my artist collective Rue. Delita has been here, my sister Delita Martin. Yes. She's been here, that's my Rue sister. And Lovey Olivia, and I keep looking at you because I'm like, you look just like Lovey. And Rabea Bain. And a little background on Rue, because this show was inspired by Rue, my next one. There's an organization called Print Matters.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm your mama. I'm the founding member, right? Really? Yes. Really? Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a founding member of Print Matters. Print Matters established Print Houston. Print Houston established Print Austin. When Print Matters started, I was the only person of color. I was the only black girl in the group. So when we decided to do Print Houston, I made it my business that there was going to be a black presence. I'm like, we going to be here. So I reached out to Delita. She's the purest printmaker I knew. Rebea has this incredible drawing hand, and Lovey is as strange as I am and will do anything. And Lovey prints on plaster. I learned that process from Lovey. And so our show just got knocked out the park, man. I mean, we were in the papers, everything. So we become known in Houston as the Rue Girls. Our first show was called Rue. And so we are the Rue Girls now. So if I'm in Houston and say, I saw your sister today, I say, which one? And they'll tell me it's one of the Rue Girls. So because we challenge each other, and Lovey taught me this brick printing process. She does plaster. She's self-taught, autodidactic, she says. And she taught herself fresco. And she helped me figure out this process. So that's inspiration. And so I was a little brain stuck, and I just said, let me just reach back to my sisters. What would Lovey do? And that's how that started, with the bricks. But then it still always has that connection back to Freedmanstown. Always goes back to having to fight for your community. In Freedmanstown, again, there's like 3 or 4 streets left that are brick paved streets. One developer, because gentrification, dug up 2 or 3 streets. I didn't know I wasn't supposed to touch it. Residents laid in the middle of the street in front of the bulldozers until they stopped. And so I always think about how much that community loves that community and the history of that community, and it's always going to relate to these bricks. So there's always that deepness, that emancipation story there. Did I answer your question? Yeah. Okay.
I think he wanted to hear where he can see your new work.
Yes.
The Hooks Epstein Gallery in Houston, Richmond and Kirby. I'll let you. Yeah, my IG is @SoulSisterArt, and I haven't posted it yet. I was letting this show shine, but that show opens next week. I need to be working right now, so yeah, I think I have to have work there Sunday. Y'all pray for me. I don't know what they're gonna get.
I do have one question.
Yes.
So we talked a lot about color. And so this is one of the first times that your work has been shown not on white walls.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, I don't do white walls too much. So what is your impression, and does it change the work for you in any way?
It changes the mood. You feel that stress, because we looked at a couple of different colors.
We did.
Yeah. And it just changes the mood to it. It's like it's caressing the work, It's inviting to that's a good, okay. Okay.
I feel like it's unfair. I know all these questions. First of all, thank you for no white walls. I am so grateful. So Anne.
Yes.
Yeah, so I want to tell a little bit more about your comment about thinking you would flunk. She was never in danger of flunking out of grad school. But what she's referring to is that printmaking is it has this area, this whole thing called editioning. Like what you do in printmaking is you learn how to make copies. And they're handmade and they're meticulous, but you're supposed to make 30 that look virtually identical. And for those of you who have seen this work and talked to Anne a little bit, you can imagine that was not her thing.
Wasn't gonna happen. Wasn't gonna do it.
So there was this tension. So my question was, when you were saying they didn't know where to put me, my question is, why did they put you in printmaking? And why do you think, and I say this as a fellow printmaker who doesn't make editions, why do you think it stuck with you? Because I feel like printmaking is stuck to you more than you stuck to printmaking.
Okay.
Yeah, and I can tell you some super funny stories about Anne, but
my
I'll
Aunt Anne
resist.
too. Yeah, we had this whole conversation with my Aunt Anne too. So they didn't know where to put me. My very first class was mixed media, taught by Carrie Ann Plank, who was a printmaker. So all of those projects were printmaking based. So some of you may know Lauren Kelly. the filmmaker, Lauren. So Lauren is younger than me, but she's like my mentor. And Lauren at the time was at Prairie View. And I would go and talk to her in the gallery. I was like, girl, I don't know what I'm going to do. And she was like, go to printmaking, learn a skill. That's how it happened. It was nothing deep about it. She was like, go to printmaking, learn a skill. That was it. And then I just I love the idea of the way that I printed each image looking so different. And I was able to kind of tell my family stories, and I can use these. I still have plates from when I was in school that I can still use in work. The longevity of that image, and how I can play with it in different ways, and the multicolor plates and the feathers, and everything was. I had to, as you know, fight my way through it and figure it out how to print on one feather, what kind of ink works, the technical stuff. So now I got all of that out the way, and I just embraced it because it was challenging. It was new, and I could do things that nobody else was doing except Ben Da. But the way he did it, I wasn't gonna do that. Yeah, he was putting stuff on the roof, and no, I wasn't doing that. And I don't do cyanotype. I find that I have this thing against it because a lot of people assume that my work is cyanotype because I like to print with the color blue. Prussian blue, which is very similar to indigo blue, which was on plantations. And people see my work and they assume that it's cyanotype. And it's not at all. I've never done it before. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Any other questions from the audience? Yeah.
Hi, thanks so much for your, answering questions so far.
Sure, no problem.
I was wondering if you could talk a bit more about the technical part of your practice. I do printmaking, but I print on paper for the most part, so I just want to hear about not printing on it.
Most printmaking professors won't let me in the class. I totally corrupted the kids in Kansas City. By the time I left, they were printing on concrete, picking up leaves. So I look at leaves. They always give me leaves when I come here. I go into the studio and they're like, "We got leaves for you." Magnolia leaves are interesting because one, they're very southern, but two, they're like velvet on the back. And then sycamore leaves are like velvet on the back. And then you print on them, and then they dance and move as they dry. So I still I'm not technically sound because I don't follow the rules, I break them. But my Nick helps me through. He loves me more than the other girls. So I like to, once I figure out what I'm going to print on, but I always start with image, I don't consider myself a photographer, but name dropping again. Deborah Willis said she said, "You are a photographer." I said, "Okay." And she also said about the Freedmanstown work, because that was another blessing. I got to spend a week with Deborah Willis, the GOAT of African American photography. And spending a week with her was mind-blowing. And I was just starting that Freedmanstown series. When I presented, she stopped and she said, "You're not creating work, you're creating monuments." Yes. And I was like, whoa. So I put that on everything. Deborah Willis, you're creating monuments. So in terms of technical, it's just different because I stick to intaglio. I don't do hard ground and soft ground or anything. Photopolymer intaglio is my process. So I stick with that, and now that I can do the multicolored, but I had to learn to do it. Kala is a great place if you're into print. What kind of printmaking do you do? Okay.
Screen printing.
Oh, screen printing? Yeah, I'm not a screen printer. But there's some good screen printers there. Yeah, I was never that great with screen printing. I like how it looks. Jess over here, talk to her. They're great, fascinating, fabulous printmakers in this whole row right here. I guess, it's different depending on the process, because the photopolymer process is a little bit more intense because you have to get timing together. It's almost like developing a photograph. And then because I don't print on paper, I have to figure out how an oil-based ink versus a water-based ink will print on a feather, print on cotton, print on a leaf. So it's a little bit challenging.
And it's not so different